The final 2012 McGraw Prize goes to someone who is clearly a rising star in American education, Salman. 8 years ago, Sal, who was living in Boston, heard that his cousin Nadia, a seventh grader in New Orleans, was struggling with metric conversions in her math class, and he wanted to do something about it. What he decided to do was to tutor her remotely using Yahoo's Doodle Notepad. And guess what? Nadia's schoolwork took off. Word about Nadia's success spread quickly among other relatives and friends, and Sal decided that it would be a good idea to post his tutorials as videos on YouTube as a resource for anyone who wanted to use them. Thousands of hits later, it struck Sal that his videos were not simply something nice to have. He had discovered a way to transform teaching and learning. So, 5 years ago, Sal, who has 3 degrees from MIT and an MBA from Harvard, quit his job as a financial analyst to begin producing videos full-time through the not-for-profit Khan Academy. Thus far, Khan Academy has produced more than 3,000 instructional videos on topics ranging from basic arithmetic to college-level economics. Sal has 2 ambitious goals for Khan Academy. First, to provide tens of thousands of videos on a wide range of subjects and to create nothing less than a free, world-class virtual school where anyone can learn anything. And second, to transform learning in the 15,000 schools that use his videos by doing what educators call flipping the classroom. Let's take it.
Well, thank you so much. This is a real honor, and it's a bit surreal. You know, as the video said, it wasn't too long ago that I was literally operating out of a closet, and you know, famously made a few of those. It was actually a friend of mine that first, and I should thank him by name for getting me here to some degree. His name is Zulfikar Ramzan, and he was the first person to suggest that I make these tutorials for my cousins and put them on YouTube. And at the time, I was completely dismissive of him. I said, no, you know, that's for cats playing piano, not for. But I got over the idea that it wasn't mine, and I gave it a shot. And you know, and now since then, it's just been, there's a whole chain of people who've played a huge role in this adventure that the Khan Academy has become. My wife, who's here, the whole team at the Khan Academy, we're now 36 people, the thousands of teachers, the millions of students, 5 million students a month who are now not only learning on Khan Academy, but are also participating on Khan Academy, creating things. You saw some of the computer science stuff. They are tutoring each other, and that's something that, you know, I think is really an untapped in element in our education system. And I think, you know, because my initial delusion while I was sitting in a closet and thinking, well, maybe one day this could turn to an organization, seems to have come to fruition. I've given myself license to delude myself even more. And so I do think we are now at a point in history, an inflection point in history, where we can fundamentally rethink what education is all about. And it's not just a kind of a pie in the sky type of thing. It's an actual tangible thing that is really just an extrapolation of what's already happening. You know, when you hear stuff about Khan Academy, there's a couple of layers there. The first layer is like, wow, that's neat. That's kind of a free tutor for my children or for myself or whoever it might be. And it's videos, it's exercises. There's a community of people there who are helping each other. And even there's kind of a fairly powerful concept, because traditionally, kind of pre-internet, free or solutions for people who are underserved were always cheap approximations of what the best had. And something kind of crazy happens when you saw that when Bill Gates gave, you know, he's turned into our best PR guy. When he goes out there and he says that he's using it for his children and even using it himself, which did make me a little bit nervous because I made those videos for Nadia. But all of a sudden, what any child anywhere has access to isn't that cheap approximation. They have the exact same thing that Bill Gates' children have access to, and he can afford tutors. And so there is starting, even at that first superficial level, there's already starting to be an approximation that anyone has access to something that the best have access to. But then you can go deeper than that. Now you can give access to people who had nothing before. You know, it's kind of crazy. For the last several years, I used to say, you know, one day I hope this stuff will be used in Mongolia. And a couple of months ago, I got a letter from Mongolia. And that by itself was exciting. And it was actually a video testimonial. This young Mongolian girl, 15 years old, her name was Zaya. And at first I just assumed, wow, she must be upper middle class, her English is quite good, she had an internet access. But this is exciting, this was in Mongolia. And, but then I read the email that came with it, and it turned out that an engineer in Silicon Valley had started his own NGO, and he went to Mongolia and he set up Khan Academy and internet in orphanages throughout Mongolia. And Zaya was a 15-year-old orphan, and that by itself was kind of, touched all of our hearts, the entire team at Khan Academy. But what made it even more tremendous, and it really kind of speaks to this multiplier effect of education and this potential that you can start tapping into, Zaya at age 15 has now become the most prolific translator of this content into the Mongolian language. She's translated over 100 videos and is kind of the teacher from Mongolia at age 15. And so it's really exciting, and I encourage y'all to check out some of what we recently released on the site. We've released over 1,000 videos in Spanish, in Portuguese, in Bengali, in Hindi, in Mandarin, and Arabic. And so we're hoping to really spark this idea as being able to reach the anyone, anywhere part of what our mission statement is. But the last piece, the last layer, the deepest layer of what Khan Academy could be, and I think some of y'all might have been even a little confused by what you saw in that video. He's this guy making videos on YouTube, but I saw a lot of project-based learning. I saw a lot of interactivity in the classroom. What's the link there? And I think that's the deepest opportunity that we have now, and I think this is just we have now as a civilization. And that our entire model, and I think the other award winners, they're right on target that a lot of the conversation isn't about the right things. Everything we're talking about, these are skirmishes, but we're still assuming a traditional model, the model that we famously inherited from the Prussians, and it's essentially been the US model or the modern model for the last 200 years, an Industrial Revolution inspired one, where students are grouped in age-based cohorts, and then they go in at a set pace, and then information is kind of thrown at them, and they try to pick up what they can. And famously, one of our good friends, she was trying to get her child into kindergarten, and an administrator told her that, oh no, he's too small to go to kindergarten. He should wait till the next year. And when I heard that, I said, well, if that's the case, they should batch them by size. But anyway, that's they muddling a few things together. But the opportunity now is to rethink things. Every educator here, every educator I speak to, they talk about this ideal differentiated instruction. What if every student could learn at their own pace? And it was always an ideal. If you had private tutors, if you were the king's son, you might have access to that. And you couldn't do it in an efficient or in a massive way through a public education system. But now we think we can. The old model, it was analogous to if you were laying a foundation for or building a building, and you laid the first foundation, you just told the contractor, look, you have exactly 2 weeks to do it. I don't care if your nails don't come in. I don't care if it rains. You're going to build me my foundation. And you get your inspector to show up, and the inspector says, oh, there's a little puddle there. The concrete's not dried. It's not up to code. It's about 80% structurally sound. And you say, great, that's passing. Let's build the first floor. And you do the same thing. You don't care if the workers are sick, you don't have the supplies, you build the first floor, 70% structurally sound. Great, that's barely passing. Third floor, second floor, third floor. And then all of a sudden when that fourth floor collapses, the whole thing comes down and you blame the contractor. But the reality was the entire time you were identifying these structural weaknesses. You were identifying that student who didn't know basic arithmetic or didn't know basic exponents, and then progressing them up because they were in that age-based cohort into algebra, into calculus, and then you're surprised when all of a sudden they didn't retain much of anything. And what we're saying is the real flip isn't just homework in the classroom and classroom work at home. The real flip is how can we make classrooms as interactive and self-paced as possible? And so that's why you saw a lot of what you saw in that video right over there. And so instead of holding fixed when and how long you have to learn something, and the variable is how well you learned it, let's do it the other way around. The variable should be how long you have to learn something and when you learn it, and the fixed thing is that you get an actual mastery of that information or that mastery of that knowledge. And it's not just information. You're actually able to go to class time and do meaningful projects, meaningful tasks, actually interact with your peers. And what we're seeing over and over and over again is if you experiment with models like this, and we're seeing it in affluent neighborhoods in Silicon Valley and underserved neighborhoods in Oakland and East Palo Alto, is that many of the students that the traditional model would have said, oh, that's the disengaged student. That's the student who, you know, they're not meant to be a professional or whatever it might else be. If you let that student remediate, if you let them work at their own pace, and there's no fear, there's no shame, there's no judgment around it, that 2, 3 months, 4 months later, those students are often the best student in the class. And we're seeing it over and over and over again. And so I'm just, you know, I tell everyone I know, a lot of people have asked me tonight, you know, what does it feel like? It genuinely feels like I'm in the middle of a science fiction book where, you know, it seems like anything really is possible over the next few decades. And I think, and I'm excited to kind of explore that adventure with y'all. Thank you.